classified material next to your Corvette? What were you thinking?
Let me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So
But at any rate,
was in a locked garage.
yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review. As part of that process, my lawyers reviewed other places where documents in from my time as vice president were stored, and they finished the review last night. They discovered a small number of documents of classified markings in storage areas and file cabinets in my home and my personal library. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn. This was done in the case of the Biden Penn Center. The Department of Justice was immediately, as was done, the Department of Justice was immediately notified, and the lawyers arranged for the Department of Justice to take possession of the document. So we're going to see all this unfold. I'm confident. Thank you very much.
How's the First Lady?
She's doing really well. She was under a long time for 5 hours because what they were doing is would do the Mohs, meaning remove what they thought might be cancerous, and they'd have to then go back and test it and see what it was. But she's doing really well. She's up. We had breakfast this morning. She's recovering, and she's gonna be sore for a while because of the work they did on her eyes, and that's where one of these were. But she is a 0 to 1% chance of ever return of any cancer, and so thank God she's doing really well. Thank you for asking.
For the first time since September 11th, 2001, the FAA had to put a temporary pause on all departures for aircraft across the nation because of a tech issue. There's a system that alerts pilots to safety issues at airports, and they're required to read those notices before their flights take off. And the system that delivers those notices to pilots had a technical issue. The system is called NOTAM, the Notice to Air Missions. It alerts pilots to safety issues like construction at the airport, a runway closure, icing on the runway. So it really goes to show how much of an impact this one little system outage has. There were over 10,000 flights that were delayed. There were well over 1,000 flights that were canceled. The FAA said that their preliminary investigation suggests that it was some corrupted data in one of their databases. A bunch of the experts who I spoke to noted that the FAA and many stakeholders in the air travel system, airlines, etc., use computer systems that are based on very old technology. In a similar vein, the Southwest problems that we saw earlier in the winter, it wasn't the same system, but it may have been a symptom of the same problem of using old technology to try to support 21st century travel. I think we're seeing some of the cracks in that. The experts that I spoke to said really comes down to using newer technology. Keeping stuff updated is obviously a good way to keep it more resilient. Where it gets complicated, especially for the FAA, is they're a government agency, so there's a lot of regulatory hurdles to do that kind of thing. And when it comes to actually upgrading the infrastructure for the FAA, their systems are online pretty much all the time, and so it's a technical challenge to be able to upgrade those systems without having to shut down the national airspace. So I think that is something that the industry is sort of aware of and is hoping to address. But again, it's really out of everyone's control until they can get those systems updated.
The war in Ukraine tonight, and Vladimir Putin has now replaced his top general in the war just 3 months after naming him. ABC's Matt Gutman from inside Ukraine again tonight.
Tonight, as the battle rages for a key town in Ukraine's east, Russian President Putin demoting his top commander in Ukraine after just 3 months. Putin showing his frustration with General Sergei Surovikin, known as the Butcher for his brutality in Syria, replacing him with Valery Gerasimov, a Kremlin insider who planned the initial invasion in February. Russia struggling to win on the battlefield, tonight claiming to have taken the town of Soledar. But Ukraine counters the bitter fighting there is still ongoing. Here, Russian soldiers can be seen coming under withering Ukrainian gunfire in Soledar. Explosions later engulfing the Russian position. Soledar is a crucial prize for the Russians, who hope to take it as part of their effort to overrun Ukrainian positions in the strategic city of Bakhmut, just a few miles away. David, beneath Soledar is a salt mine with 120 miles of tunnels that each side is now vying to control. Now, this has been the bloodiest battle of the war so far, and I spoke to an exhausted American medic tonight who said that casualties are high. David.
All right, Matt Gutman in Dnipro for us tonight. Thank you.
This just into CNN. Taylor Dudley, a U.S. Navy veteran who has been detained in Russia for nearly a year, there's a picture of him, has now been released. This comes after months of negotiations spearheaded by former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. He's often been involved in negotiations like this.
CNN White House reporter Natasha Bertrand joining us now with more. So Natasha, what are the details? What more are you learning about this?
Yeah, so this literally just happened moments ago. 35-year-old Taylor Dudley, a Lansing, Michigan native, was released to former Governor Bill Richardson and his team there in Poland after being detained in Kaliningrad in April of 2022. Now, it is not clear how Taylor Dudley ended up in Kaliningrad. He had been in Poland for a music festival, we're told, and he ended up crossing the border, and he was then detained by Russian Border Patrol agents there in that tiny little exclave of Kaliningrad that, of course, is Russian territory sandwiched between Poland and the Baltic states. But what we know is that this has been a process of months of the Richardson team trying to get him released. And actually what we are told is that the former New Mexico governor, who now has a nonprofit dedicated to these kinds of hostage negotiations, did bring his case up with the Russian officials kind of around the same time he was trying to negotiate the release of Paul Whelan, Brittany Griner, and Trevor Reed. Of course, Reed and Griner have been released and Paul Whelan has not. So what we are told is that that Taylor Dudley is in good health. He has been released just moments ago to the team that has been negotiating his release, and the Russian officials did not demand anything in return for his release. So they are actually very pleased about how this all went. And of course, they are emphasizing at this point that they are still working very hard to get Paul Whelan home. He, of course, remains in Russian custody. Guys.
Remarkable. No quid pro quo for this one. Natasha Bertrand, thanks so much.
It is time for the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, to make good on promises made to Republican hardliners who initially opposed his nomination. His election, after a historic 5-day, 15-ballot fight, came with a list of concessions made to GOP holdouts in exchange for their support. Now some of those deals are going into effect, and let's talk about it now with CNN's senior political analyst, anchor, and CNN senior political analyst, John Avlon. He's here with me now. So how are these, good morning to you, how are these concessions playing out?
All right, well, let's first of all remember, these are the core holdouts, the 20 or so holdouts, vast majority election deniers. These are the folks who took the floor fight for Kevin McCarthy back to a standard we haven't seen since before the Civil War. Already, we're seeing rewards coming to these folks. Right, so 6 members of these holdout groups getting plum positions on the Appropriations Committee, including Andrew Clyde, who described January 6th as a tourism day at the Capitol, and Financial Services Committee. Very powerful committees. But let's also take a look at the key concessions. These are just some of them. This is the deals that Kevin McCarthy made to finally get the votes across, right? So first of all, any member can call a motion to vacate the Speaker's chair. Freedom Caucus representatives, many of whom are on that page, increased representation on key committees. This is the debt ceiling we've been talking so much about, right? This is a sign of coming attractions. We're going to have a collision course. Discretionary spending at 22 levels. Committee to investigate the weaponization of the federal government. And, of course, 72 hours to review bills before they come to the floor, which sounds common sense but can gum up the works.
I got to ask you about this. From a prominent Republican, I got this note that says, Representatives Clyde and Cloud were appointed to the Appropriations Committee. These guys were rewarded for bad behavior during the Speaker's vote. This is a stunning and part of a handshake deal between the holdouts, I won't use the word that they use. He said nuts and McCarthy, I would say nuts and McCarthy, which they will never admit to publicly. What do you think about that? Do you believe that's true?
Well, here's the evidence that it's true. You're talking to a source in the Republican conference who's saying this is happening. It is already happening. We got to say, the committee assignments aren't even fully been doled out yet. But to see folks who put Kevin McCarthy and the country really through that kind of chaos get rewarded with appropriations, it's a very big deal. What I also wanted to do, this is sort of a bonus, is look at where independent voters say what the Republicans in Congress should be focusing on. Remember, independent voters, they're the plurality in American politics. They're the folks who actually swung towards Democrats this cycle. So Republicans got to keep their wishes in mind. Interestingly, now 71% of independents say in this new CBS poll that they want Republicans in the House to work with Biden's and Dems to enact policies that everyone can agree on, right? Come together. By the way, incidentally, they say the same thing about Democrats in the Senate. They say 67% say protecting Social Security. 65% of independents say support U.S. aid to Ukraine. Far from a done deal. 59% say reducing crime.
Those are high numbers.
Those are high numbers. Take a look, though. Border. Only 25% say investigating Hunter Biden. Only 20% say restricting abortion access. And only 10% of independent voters say Republicans in the House should focus on loyalty to Donald Trump. So there's a disconnect there that goes to the heart of their political problems.
John Avlon, thank you very much.